Hello to our entire Roastbrief community. We have a special guest today in this space. Here we are with Rob Mills. He's the director and global CEO of Gemba. Rob, how are you? It's such a pleasure to have you here.
I'm great, Sebastian. Yeah, thanks for making the time for the chat.
No, thank you, and congratulations for this new appointment.
No, thank you. No, it's super exciting. It's something that's been in the planning for a while, so it's great to get it out in the market and tell people about what we're doing.
Yeah, such a great challenge. It's coming.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's obviously something that we're building on some really strong foundations, but yeah, we think the market's at a really exciting point at the moment. So it's great to get it all out there and get moving.
Yes. So what can you tell us about your vision? I mean, what's your vision for the company moving forward? What key areas will you prioritize in your leadership?
Yeah, I think more broadly, we sort of talk about the desire of making the industry better, and we talk about sort of shaping a better future for the sport and entertainment industry. So I think one of the pleasures that we have is that we work in the industry that we've all got some sort of form of passion connection with it. So, as a collective and individually, it's really important that we feel like we're moving sport and entertainment forward, which is exciting. So I suppose that premise about sort of trying to make things better for the industry is at sort of the core of the business. And more specifically, we've sort of recently announced really doubling down on the fan insight part of our business, and specifically around investing more in our sponsorship practice. Sort of very conscious at the moment that the industry is at a really interesting inflection point as broadcast money is starting to slow down for major rights holders. Sponsorship will need to sort of provide more revenue for rights holders, and increasingly brands are also looking for a bit more sort of transparency and structure around their sponsorship investments. So we made the decision a few months ago to really double down our investment in that area and investing in both sort of people, new intellectual capital, and insights as well. So that's sort of really core driving focus for us for the next 12 months.
Yeah, and speaking of Gemba emphasizes this transparency and independence in sponsorship valuation. How do you think this approach will reshape the industry?
Yeah, it's something we've always been really passionate about. Right back to the origins of the business, we're very conscious about not getting in situations where we're conflicted, where we were sitting on both the buy and the sell side. So it's been really central to the business for the best part of 20 years now. I think we're seeing some increasing concerns on this issue, but from both brands and rights holders. And to that end, we actually decided to do an industry survey just to get a bit of a pulse check on that from how brands were feeling about that. And I suppose particularly given brands are the buyers, it's really important that they feel confidence in transparency and measurement. And the results, I suppose, it's the type of thing we expected, but perhaps a bit more pronounced. We've probably got somewhere between 35 to 40% of major sponsors having concerns around transparency, credibility, conflicts of interest. So it was just something that we felt that the industry needs to have a really good think about, because if the market and the buyers don't have confidence in the channel, it's going to be increasingly hard for sponsorship to grow. And that's a lost opportunity for brands, because we think sponsorship can be incredibly powerful, and it's obviously a potential risk for rights holders as well. So, yeah, we put that research out to sort of start framing up that conversation. As a business, we've always built a business that doesn't rely on having to sort of sell and buy commissions. So we've always acted in an independent way. And I think the other interesting marker on that is we're increasingly seeing more procurement involved in sponsorship decisions. I think about just under 60% of people in the survey that we spoke to recently said that procurement's now involved in sponsorship decisions. So procurement's going to bring new levels of expectations around transparency and visibility and pricing. And again, it's really important that the industry recognises that and not try to sort of push procurement away, but actually deal with the fact that procurement's coming in. And actually, in fact, there's some actually really good things about procurement being involved, because they do bring transparency and accountability, which sometimes means that deals can get signed off. So, yeah, we wanted to have that conversation around better data, more independence to really sort of grow the global sponsorship industry.
Yeah, exactly. And with this turnstile, is turnstile?
Turnstile, yeah.
Turnstile, right? So it's now integrated into Gemba's sponsorship practice. So how do you see it evolving to better serve brands and right holders?
Yeah, I felt like Turnstile's coming home because Turnstile was initially actually built by Gemba back in 2017-18, and it was a new baby that we let out into the industry, and now it's sort of coming home. But I think what we've been finding as Gemba's been growing globally is that both our Gemba and Turnstile teams have been increasingly working together anyway. So, whether it be an AC Milan or Real Madrid, we would have Gemba and Turnstile teams jointly working on the same project. So it's probably just a natural evolution. It felt like it made sense to bring those two businesses back together again. It materially doesn't make much difference to the existing work we're doing. Longer term, that integration, we think, lines up with a broader commitment around data and analytics. So it'll make it a lot sort of bit more seamless for clients, but also will unlock some really exciting product development opportunities as well. But so Turnstile's really been central to the Gemba way of pricing for the last 6-7 years anyway. So it's not a huge jump from that perspective, but it just particularly makes it easy for our clients. But in the coming years, we'll be building new data analytics products, more evaluation products. So having those all housed together, we think makes a lot more sense in the medium to long term.
Yeah, exactly. And Turnstile has already been valuated over $5 billion. So these $5 billion in deals. So what are some key insights or trends that have emerged from this extensive data analysis?
Yeah, we're privileged to sit on a huge amount of data and insight around sort of the global sponsorship market, which is quite fascinating. And I think probably the macro trend is we're seeing sort of steady increase in deals having more intellectual property value baked into the deal. And what we mean by that is that in addition to the sort of tangible elements of ticketing and hospitality and LED signage and the like, we've always had this sort of contention that intellectual property is something which really should be priced into sponsorship deals. That ability to associate with a Real Madrid or a English Cricket Board or the NBA, that they're massive, powerful brands in their own right. And there's a price to access that IP. And the industry's quite often talked about IP being an intangible. We think it's incredibly intangible, incredibly measurable. So I think that the pleasing thing that we're seeing in our data, and we would like to think that we've made a contribution to this, is that there's more and more deals that are having quite clear bits of intellectual property in the valuations. So that's increased by about 20% over the last six years. So 20% of more deals now have intellectual property baked in, and that's really important for rights holders. But it also gives brands comfort around how to actually price that intellectual property as well. So that's been a really interesting evolution we can see in our data. We're seeing some really good growth in women's properties again as well. I think obviously we know women's sports growing at a rapid rate. But again, it's the intellectual property value of women's deals that's really important. And a lot of brands are looking to associate themselves with that momentum and the huge, I suppose, good positive sentiment around women's sports. So we're seeing some really healthy increases, particularly with the premium women's properties in their value. And again, the intellectual property component of that is driving a large part of that. And probably more broadly, some of the big properties, the Wimbledons, the Masters, the Olympics, they seem to be getting stronger and stronger as well. I think generally, the big properties do seem to be getting bigger and stronger, and we're seeing that in our pricing as well. So to be honest with you, Sebastian, I could talk all day about this. There's so much interesting data that sits in those $5 billion. But yeah, they're probably the three macro ones. And then I think, as I said, probably outside our data, just that increasing involvement of procurement and the more. I think COVID was a really interesting period. I think what we found during COVID, there was a lot of reflection of actually we're locked into long-term deals. How do we value those deals? How do we price those deals? So there's probably been a bit of a reset post-COVID around a bit more transparency and rigor on pricing, which has probably fast-tracked some of those trends as well.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because speaking about challenges, for example, what challenges do brands and rights holders face when it comes to sponsorship? How does Gemba's approach help to solve them?
It's twofold. I could sort of characterise that as insight and independence. I think, as we talked about before, we think that independence is going to be increasingly important going forward, so that the market can transact without conflicts of interest. And clearly, not every deal is conflicted, but the research we've just done does suggest there is a concern about that. So I think independent agencies like ours, and it's obviously we're not the only ones that are doing it, but independent agencies like us, I think, become more important to grow the sponsorship channel longer term. I think the other one that we're very passionate about is just better data and insight. I think the last 10, 15 years as digital has become stronger and stronger, and look, there's clearly challenges sometimes with digital metrics as well, and that's not perfect. But I suppose for a lot of advertisers, there's a transparency and accountability around digital advertising that's perhaps lifted the standard, in terms of people's expectation around marketing investments. And as an industry, sponsorship, we've got to catch up on that. So how we make decisions about where we invest, how we price sponsorships and how we evaluate sponsorships becomes really important. So I think that the challenges are, and I think we look at them as really exciting challenges, is that how do we provide the industry with better metrics and tools that make that transparency and that accountability stronger? And we think that will end up growing the sponsorship market, and also, importantly, deliver better results for brands as well, because obviously if brands are getting better results, they'll reinvest as well. So yeah, I suppose two thoughts, better insight and more independence are the two things that we think are the big challenges for the industry.
And how do you see sponsorship evolving in the next 5 years, especially with this increasing importance of fan insights and this data-driven decision making?
Yeah, I think we've sort of touched on some already. I think better measurement's a key thing, and that definitely we see that trend evolving in the coming years. I think there's some interesting things maybe coming at us around perhaps a bit more sort of personalisation and hyper-personalisation. I mean, sponsorship's been really good at reaching mass audiences, whether it be through LED signage and sort of branding that's integrated onto athletes and teams. I think there's some really interesting technology coming that will mean that brands will be able to target, more specifically by region or even by household going forward. So the ability to actually, maybe swap out logos that, you might see a Walmart logo and I might see an Amazon logo, depending on the profile of my household. That's really interesting. I think in some ways, sponsorship almost becomes a bit more of a digital metric in some ways, or a digital channel that can be more targeted. So we're doing a lot of work and thinking around that trend and personalisation. Again, I think better data and analytics, things like clean rooms where brands and rights holders can swap their databases and see where the crossover in databases are, sort of see where those opportunities are. I think we're really excited by things like that. So, there's an appetite in the industry to really shake this up, I think, probably more so than ever, because there's sort of compelling reason for both buyers and sellers to get better in this area. A lot of it is underpinned by, I think, better data analytics, which is, I think, something which is going to be great for the industry in the coming years.
Yes, and you talked about these major clients Gemba has been appointing. So Gemba has these major clients like Coca-Cola, Google, Real Madrid. So what are the next steps to further expand your global footprint in this sponsorship market?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of growth for us just in the markets we're in at the moment. And obviously, by virtue of being based here in London, we're at sort of the doorstep of Europe. So, we're very close to a lot of those other markets as well. But, we've just put our first person into Munich recently. We've got a person based now in New York. So we see growth in those markets. I think more broadly, we do see a lot of growth still out of our London office here. We've got a really strong business in Asia Pacific based out of Melbourne and Sydney, and again see growth there and into Asia. So I think the trends that we're talking about today are really global trends. So it's not like they're necessarily limited to one region. How we pick them off in a structured way in the coming years is probably something we're still working through. But it's remarkably similar. We can have a conversation with a brand in New York or Munich or London or Sydney, and they're pretty much saying the same things as our rights holders. So I think a lot of the things that we're talking about we see as very transferable across all those markets.
And with this hiring of additional staff and the search for a head of sponsorship, what kind of talent and expertise are you looking to bring into Gemba?
looking for Superman or Superwoman. Yeah, so no, we think it's a really cool role. It's I think a role that has a really strong remit around building out some of these new data products, providing advice to our clients, managing a super talented team spread across London, Munich, New York, and Sydney. So it's got a lot of facets to the role. I think in our mind, it's probably someone that's actually, as I say, sort of sat in the chair and maybe sat on the buy side or the sell side and lived it practically. We think that's potentially important. It's someone who really embraces the idea of data analytics and can sort of see the vision for what we're talking about. And obviously, that person will be supported by an amazing team of insight specialists and in-house data analytics teams. But at its core, they need to really embrace data and insights as well. So yeah, we're really open-minded about where that person comes from. But as I say, I'm probably biased, but I think it's a super cool role. So I'm really interested to see who ends up getting it.
It sounds quite fun, that role.
I think so, but maybe I'm a bit nerdy. No, I think it is. I think it's we started this conversation talking about shaping a better future for the industry, and I think this is almost sort of ground zero for us because we do really think with what we've done today with Turnstile and our approach to sponsorship is making the industry better, but at the same time we see so much upside in this area. So I think it's a really interesting role.
Yes, and about this role and about this all of this technology and innovation that is coming, how is Gemba leveraging new technologies such as AI, advanced analytics to enhance this sponsorship measurement and valuation?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a watching brief with all those things. I mean, we're constantly looking at whether it be AI or just more advanced analytics techniques. We've done a couple of pilots on AI internally to look at how that might help us, and we're still refining that. I think more broadly, the Gemba has a really talented group of data analytics people, so data scientists, engineers, analysts. Some of those guys are already being deployed very closely with Turnstile at the moment as part of integration, so they're really making that data more accessible and more leverageable. As I say, we're fortunate that a lot of that capability sits in the business already, and it's sort of about how we deploy that onto sort of new product development. But I think there's some really interesting things that are happening around image recognition and in terms of sort of understanding volume of exposure. We think that's interesting. We're really interested in areas like social media listening, how that may help us understand better fan base sizing globally. We're doing some thinking at the moment around sort of programmatic and sponsorship and where that goes as well. So, there's quite a few sort of work streams that are sort of happening at the moment, and some of which, will come to fruition and some that won't. But it's obviously an ongoing commitment that we sort of make to make sure we're thinking about the opportunities that come out of those new technologies.
So before we end this amazing interview, I would love to know about your future outlook. So if you could describe Gemba's long-term impact on the sports and entertainment sponsorship industry in one sentence, what would it be?
It's a big question, Sebastian. Look, I would say the positive impact we have on the industry is that when we bring the fan to the core of the decision making. So if we can bring the fan into the room with a major sports league or a major brand when they're thinking about making a decision and really bring that fan to life, articulate their motivations, their behaviours, what they love about sport and entertainment. If we can bring that to all people in the industry, inherently there'll be better decisions made out of that. And obviously we help on making those decisions. And I suppose that sort of, goes back to the new positioning that we've rolled out recently of being, fan focused and results driven. So the more fan focused we are and the better understanding that we have and in turn our clients have of fans, the better results they will give. So that wasn't a sentence, but if I was articulating it down to a sentence, it would be bringing the fan to the core of the decisions, I suppose would be how we'd articulate that.
It's all about the fans.
It's all about the fans. We live by the mercy of the fans, exactly. And I think and that's exciting because I think the lovely thing about our industry is that we're dealing with people's passion points. It's stuff they want to do. It's stuff that has been handed down from generations of mothers and fathers to them. It's for most fans, it's probably the highlight of their week is going to a football game or a basketball game or going to see their favourite band. So we're dealing in people's passion points, and that's That's a ton of fun. That's good. That's what we want to do.
It's been one of the greatest interviews I have ever done. So thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so
Well, thank
much.
you. It's a lovely
Yeah, no,
compliment.
this has been
Take
fun
that,
for me.
Rob. Take that.
Yeah, take
Thank
that.
you
You
so
know,
much.
I might retire, Sebastian. That might be as good as it gets for me.
No, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure for me, for the entire Roastbrief community, and once again, congratulations, and we're looking forward to Gemba's future.
Great. Thank you. No, thanks for the time.
Thank you so much, and thank you to our entire Roastbrief community. We just hope to have more of these interviews. It didn't feel like an interview. That's why I loved it. Thank you so much.
There you go.
So much, Rob.
Thank you.
Bye, comunidad.